Welcome to the next session of the DoD Cloud Exchange. I'm Jason Miller. My guest today is John Hale, the Chief of Cloud Services at the Defense Information Systems Agency. John, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having me on, Jason. It's always a pleasure.
As we continue our discussion on the DoD's drive to ensure cloud computing and cloud services are getting to warfighters and getting them capabilities faster, better, and of course, cheaper, we're going to today discuss MilCloud 2.0, among other things, when it comes to DIS's cloud services. So let's start there. What is the current status of MilCloud 2.0?
So MilCloud 2.0, we launched that in 2017 as a replacement of our MilCloud 1.0 capability, which, as most people know, was a government-owned, government-operated capability. So we outsourced the cloud capability, MilCloud 2.0, to a service offering by a vendor, General Dynamics IT, GDIT. So we launched it in 2017, and since then we've been working with mission partners to migrate their various workloads and capabilities onto the system. Right now we have about 4,500 workloads on the system, spread across 89 different mission partners in the Department of Defense, which encompasses all of the major services, agencies, and COCOMs.
That's a much different place than you were maybe just a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. I remember, John, you and I talked about early on as things just started to move to 2.0, and DISA was very excited for it. What's the growth rate been? What are some of the trends about usage you've seen specifically over the last year, when I've heard that a lot of agencies, civilian, DoD alike, have really started to say, hey, this software as a service thing, that could really make our lives a lot easier?
Yeah, actually, and that's a good point. So MilCloud 2.0, when we originally launched it, was focused on infrastructure as a service, which is, at the time that when we launched the capability, was where the department was. There was a lot of focus on simply providing virtual infrastructure for various mission partners so that they could get out of their traditional data centers, so that they could ultimately, end up with a cost savings there by shuttering legacy data centers. Over the last couple of years, and really, I think over the last probably 18 months, there's been a really strong push towards software as a service, which goes up the stack a little bit. But there's still a demand for infrastructure as a service from the MilCloud 2 platform. But we are seeing an increasing demand also for software as a service, like you talked about, specifically in the world of office automation and traditional type commodity type IT services that you would see from vendors.
Do you get a sense of when that change happened or why that change happened? Is it just a natural evolution of cloud?
I think it has a lot to do with the natural evolution of cloud. As mission partners became more and more comfortable with their workloads or applications running in a cloud environment. We used to make this joke in the department that senior leaders wanted their capabilities run by the closest throat that they could choke, because they wanted that kind of that touch ability to reach out and make something happen if there was an issue. But as we've moved applications into the commercial cloud, our mission partners are becoming more and more comfortable with that model. And the next evolution of that is software as a service. And software as a service, what it's really bringing to the table is the ability for mission partners to focus on their mission and less about IT. And so if you can find a capability for like a core software as a service type capability, let's just say like a help desk management type thing, that's one less thing that you have to run. That's one less thing that you have to take and care for on a day-to-day basis and deal with the cyber hygiene if you just simply buy it by the seat. So there's a lot of desire to basically let professionals manage the cyber hygiene and the day-to-day care and feeding of your applications, and let you focus on your mission.
We'll talk a lot about cyber, I'm sure, later on in the discussion. But before I get there, first, you said there's being a big push for software as a service. Is that a combination of the mission areas and the partners bringing their applications to MilCloud 2.0 and then running on MilCloud 2.0 and reaching back into it? Or are there some pieces of software that are inherent to MilCloud 2.0 that mission partners are taking advantage of?
I think it's a little bit of both. There's, we run a couple of software as a service stacks on top of MilCloud 2.0 that we've worked with our mission partners, specifically GDIT, our provider on. But also, I mean, there are other contract vehicles that we're leveraging, outside of MilCloud 2.0 that provide specific software as a service capabilities. So, for an example, would be the DoD's contract, the DoD Enterprise Office Suite. That's a completely separate vehicle. It happens to be the same vendor, but provides office automation, for mission partners also.
Right. We spoke with your colleague Carolyn Bean as part of the DoD Cloud Exchange, and I think we heard from her yesterday about that. So there's plenty there on DOS. It's starting to ramp up and gain some momentum there. I know we're a little tired of talking about this, John, but I'm going to bring it up anyways because it's an interesting part of the conversation when we come to MilCloud 2.0 and software as a service. As I've mentioned, there's a big uptick that I've seen across civilian and DoD about software as a service. During the pandemic, did services, mission partners, did others find more benefit in moving applications, taking advantage of MilCloud 2.0 offering because of that reliance of remote working and teleworking and the need to access your applications and your data from anywhere at any time?
Yes, so we have seen uh, mission partners adopt, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service more rapidly, probably since the pandemic started, and that does have to do with the fact that mission partners are working in a more virtual environment today, and commercial cloud just rolls along with that. So we have seen an uptake in demand signal for services since the pandemic started, and it's really been, how do I take my legacy applications, my legacy capabilities that I've been hosting in the past, and move it into a commercial cloud environment, into a virtual world where I can manage it remotely from anywhere.
It's kind of it's both the silver lining and kind of sad that we needed a pandemic to one, get the urgency of IT modernization and understand the benefits of both cloud and telework. There's a little thickness of irony there, I think, for a lot of us. John, I want to talk a little bit about MilCloud and some of the, let's get into the nitty gritty of it. That's taking one of the things that GDIT we'll talk about later on today during the DoD Cloud Exchange is one of the ease of use pieces to MilCloud 2.0. From DIS's perspective, what are you seeing in terms of for their partners moving applications to the platform?
So I will tell you that most mission partners right now have been focused on uh, legacy applications, kind of lift and shift of legacy applications out of their traditional data centers and moving it into the MilCloud 2.0 environment, and other commercial cloud environments also. Um, there's been there hasn't been a whole lot of focus on new development, cloud native type applications, which is where I think most of us saw the progression of cloud computing within the department going, and I still see that going, right? So as these applications, as part of their life cycle, as they mature, and they get rewritten or rebuilt or replaced, I believe all your new applications and new development will be done cloud natively. Uh, but right now, a lot of the focus has been around just simply hosting the capabilities that we've had running in data centers for decades. And even though I like to stand up and say lift and shift is bad, because you're not going to garner the true value and benefit of what commercial cloud has to offer, it's better than nothing at this point, and that's kind of where we're at. So.
But in some ways, it's also much agencies are much smarter about lift and shift. They understand this other idea, and I know this is another well-worn topic, but they understand the concepts of cloud smart versus cloud first. A lot of the discussion during early days of cloud was move, move, move. And now they're saying, okay, does this make sense to move to the cloud? Okay, it does. Okay, let's put it in there and then let's start to optimize. Is that what you're also seeing? Is it's a smarter lift and shift?
Yes. So working with the DoD CIO's office a couple of years ago, we did a cloud readiness review across all of the fourth estate agencies, so all of the non-services. The Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps were allowed to do their own. But working with the DoD CIO, we did one with all the other agencies and COCOMs and organizations within the department. And what we did in that was we kind of went through every single application and looked at how they were built, how they were managed, how they were run, and we did an assessment about where the right location, the right in-state location for that application, what could should be, and the outcomes of that weren't necessarily always cloud, right? Some of them, because of their particular architecture or whatever, they needed to stay on legacy type hosting environments, hard iron sitting on the floor of a data center somewhere. Um, some of them were actually designated as simply leave it in place. It wasn't even worth touching it or trying to move it to the cloud. And a use case I like to use there is a flight simulator for the new Joint Strike Fighter, right? That flight simulator, the computing power necessary to run that flight simulator for the pilots who are training on the Joint Strike Fighter needs to be co-located with the actual flight simulator itself for reaction time. When the pilot actually moves the joystick in the cockpit, the system needs to respond accordingly. So there's a large amount of computing that goes on there. That computing power needs to be co-located with the actual flight simulator. There's no reason to move that to the cloud. There's no reason to move that outside of its current location. So cloud is not always the right answer, but when it is the right answer, we worked with the mission partner to figure out the right cloud provider, the right cloud service that could meet their needs.
I remember when you guys talked about that cloud readiness review. I know it's been a few years, so maybe this is asking you to reach back into your brain there a little bit. Do you remember what percentage roughly was cloud ready? Was cloud optional? Do you remember anything that stood out to you in terms of the statistics, and how does it compare to today?
So out of the workloads that we did the original review on, I would say probably about 65% of them were actually cloud ready or cloud viable type applications. Out of the ones that were not cloud ready or cloud viable, they were kind of split between leave in place and should move to a enterprise data center. Um, and so we've been working kind of both prongs of that from a DoD CIO and a DISA perspective of helping mission partners move their applications to either an enterprise data center or to a commercial cloud provider.
That's impressive. I mean, 65%. I was really going to tell you, I was thinking it's going to be 40, 45%, because so many agencies have, there's a perception at least that there's a lot of legacy apps that are just old and can't be moved. Did that number surprise you at the time? And what's the delta now? Do you think it's, you know, so many percentages moved and that number is maybe is 40% or 20%? Or are you guys keeping track at all?
We are keeping track on an application by application layer. I wouldn't necessarily say we're keeping track from a percentage perspective. Um, so I'll say as a cloud advocate, right, and as a a crier from the pulpit about cloud, I believe 100% of applications should be in the cloud. But I'm a realist, right? So I know we're not going to be there. I know we're not going to get there. But if it was up to me, everything would run in the cloud. Um, but um, but I think what we've seen is a shift towards cloud smart, as you put it earlier, and out of the 65% or so applications that were originally identified, I would probably say we're about 40 to 50% there of getting all those applications migrated. There have been some limiting factors as far as why we haven't migrated certain applications, mostly dealing with contracts and the availability of various providers. But I think we're moving along at a very good pace. Is it the pace that we originally wanted? No, I think we were supposed to be much further along at this point, but we're moving along.
Obviously a good sign. I love the fact that you're both someone who's optimistic but also a realist. Everything should be in the cloud, but come on, I understand what reality looks like. So so DISA and his partners have had a lot of success so far, the services and contractors. What's among the biggest lessons learned so far about the lift and shift, or the moving from uh, you know, data centers to the MilCloud 2.0? What are some of the things you point out to say, hey, in 2019 we made this mistake over and over, by 2021 we're not making that mistake anymore?
Well, I wish we could say that we learned from our mistakes, but unfortunately, it seems we continue to make the same mistake over and over again. So, and that has to deal with lifting and shifting poorly developed applications, right? Um, a lot of our legacy applications that we have moved into the cloud environment um, are not standalone applications, right? They're part of a larger ecosystem of applications for a particular mission partner, uh, and and when you move part of those, but you don't move all of them, you end up with a lot of communication back and forth between legacy applications and the cloud, which just adds to the complexity of troubleshooting issues when something doesn't work right. Um, so what we tell mission partners today is if you're going to move an application into the commercial cloud, you need to move all of the supporting applications into the commercial cloud also. And that's going to minimize your impact, and it's going to make things much more resilient if you do that. It's a bigger pill to swallow, but what you're going to end up with is better quality of service in the end.
And let me dive into that for a second, because it's like someone who says, well, we're going to move our general ledger system into the cloud, but leave our, for instance, budgeting system on prem, or leave our procurement system on prem, where the data that general ledger system needs to pull from, it's got to go back and forth between on prem and the cloud, creating uh, latency, creating potential. Okay, where is the hiccup? Oh, it's on my side, it's on your side. That's the complexity you're talking about. Do I have that kind of right?
Absolutely. A classic example that we like to use is the Defense Contract Audit Agency, or DCAA. They moved 100% of their applications into the cloud. 100% of their virtual their production applications are in the commercial cloud, and they have seen great performance and great return on investment. Whereas other organizations who moved part of their applications in the commercial cloud are not seeing that same kind of return. And so it's absolutely, it's, when you move one or two applications in, you have to move the entire ecosystem surrounding those applications into the cloud to really gain the benefit.
John, do you get a sense that part of that is the inexperience of understanding cloud, or is there a hesitancy to give up control? When you talk to your mission partners about it, what's the rationale for not, taking everything and moving it into the cloud?
I think it's a little bit of fear of the unknown. It goes back to what I was saying before. A lot of organizations have always operated on that ability to reach out and touch the actual system administrator and who's running an application. And when you run into the commercial cloud environment, you give up a little bit of control of the day-to-day care and feeding of the hardware in the infrastructure itself. And so there's a little bit of fear of the unknown there about not being able to know what you can trust and what you can't trust. As mission partners gain trust in the commercial cloud environments, we're seeing more and more adoption and less hesitancy as far as making those kind of moves. The other part about that is some of these applications, like I said, are just poorly written. And so we're really not going to see them move into the commercial cloud environment or move into any kind of environment like that until they're rewritten or recoded in order to take advantage of what the cloud has to offer.
And that in and of itself could be a huge lift, where an agency then says, yeah, we're not moving to the cloud, because the time and effort to take to rewrite those applications today, it may be more difficult, and it's maybe that's a longer term project than just, as you talked about earlier, lifting and shifting. I'm sure that plays into it as well. We've talked a lot about the current status of MilCloud 2.0, the 4,500 applications and workloads. and 89 mission partner areas. A lot going on. Let's talk about where is it heading next. I think a lot of people are as you said, you've seen the a little bit of the light there about why MilCloud 2.0 or any cloud environment really matters. What's Where's DISA seeing if we talk about this in a year from now, what's MilCloud 2.0 going to look like?
So MilCloud 2.0 has evolved quite a bit since we launched it in 2017. It was originally based on the Autonomics cloud automation platform, um, but the vendor behind it, General Dynamics IT, has added capabilities to the MilCloud 2 suite of services. So, for example, one of the first things they did, based on mission partner demand, was we added a series of tiering for performance of solid state storage. So we had certain applications came in and they said, I need super high input output storage in order for my application to perform correctly. And so the vendor augmented the system and added different tiers of storage, solid state storage to the capability in order to meet mission partner demand. So we've added functionality by adding higher input output storage to the system. We've also added native Oracle Exadata storage within the system. So if you have a legacy application that takes advantage of a highly tuned Oracle database solution, you can move that into the Exadata capability, which is part of MilCloud 2.0, and run it just like it was running on hardware in your data center today. The original hypervisor in MilCloud 2.0 is the Linux KVM hypervisor. We've also added the ability to host VMware ESX workloads in the environment. That went live a couple of months ago, where we can natively host VMware ESX based workloads without necessarily having to convert to Linux KVM hypervisors, which makes it easier for people to move their legacy virtualized workloads into the cloud environment. And then most recently, we added the AWS GovCloud option, which is where mission partners through the MilCloud 2.0 portal can actually order AWS GovCloud credits also, so that you can host things whether it's be on-prem or off-prem in a commercial cloud environment. So we work very closely with the vendor, and we see the continued evolution of the capability to meet mission partners' demands as those demands are kind of flushed out. So
One of the things that I know DoD and DISA specifically has been known for is the ability to understand its customer needs, where it's going, what they want. How are you ensuring that today's customer needs are being met and tomorrow's? I'm sure there's surveys. I'm sure there's what.
So there's a couple of different forums that we leverage. So there's the DoD Cloud Wave Ahead forum, which honestly occurs. It's chaired by the DoD CIO's office. It happens every week, and it's basically all of the cloud leaders from around the department get together, and we make sure that everybody's in tune with what everybody else is doing, where we're going, what we're working on, what the schedules are, and those kind of things. So those are really good kind of informal information sharing type environments. Likewise, from an education perspective, we have a series of boot camps which we offer prospective mission partners who are thinking about leveraging cloud capabilities, where they can come in and learn and get kind of hands-on capability to touch the systems and make sure that they meet their needs. And we also have what we call our MilCloud users groups, or what we call mugs, which is once again is an informal group that meets periodically throughout the month, that basically allows mission partners to directly ask questions from GDIT or from DISA, and vice versa. We go back and forth about what they're looking for, what their demands are, so that we can continue to enhance the system to meet their demands. So there are several different forums that we use for both directions of communication, to make sure that we're continuing to meet their needs.
And I'm sure that's why you had heard about, for instance, the desire for AWS, or the desire for the VMware, or virtualization stack, or the desire. I know another big deal that's coming up maybe later this summer is the option for IL6 classified. That's where all these changes have come from, I would imagine, right?
Yes. Um, The IL6 capability, as you brought up, which is our classified version of MilCloud 2.0 running on CyprNet, is slated to start testing in May, with the expectation we're going to go live in June of 2021 this year, to bring mission partners onto that capability. So we'll have a native cloud capability running on CyprNet this summer.
Let's go down that path a little bit. There's plenty to pull back from around AWS and VMware, but let's talk about IL6 for a second. We've heard over the years the desire, for instance, for FedRAMP, and it's I know IL6 is higher than FedRAMP high, but there's been this kind of realization of agencies needing more security within the cloud, and that's part of that, getting more comfortable with using the cloud. What will IL6 mean for the DoD and your mission partners?
So, from an actual capabilities perspective, the IL6 version of MilCloud 2.0 will be on par with the MilCloud 5 version of MilCloud 2.0. So there's not going to be a whole lot of differences from a capabilities perspective between one system and the other. The difference is really the security that we're putting behind the systems in order to meet IL6, classified hosting requirements. So that goes back into ensuring that the actual cloud environment themselves are running in uh, classified environments. That the people who are running them, the system administrators and the workforce behind it, are all cleared appropriately, and that all the data is managed and encrypted appropriately to meet classified requirements. So it really, from a feature perspective, it- mission partners should really not see a whole lot of difference. It's really going to be about what's behind the system in order to meet classification requirements.
John, I get the difference, obviously, when it comes to security. IL6 is going to be more secure than IL5. I'm more interested in exploring, though, what this will mean for partners in mission areas to have a classified environment available. Does it mean, okay, all these workloads that used to be in our on-premise classified data center can now move securely to the cloud, or does it mean something else? Help me understand from a mission partner area why IL6 is important.
Yeah, so a lot of mission partners run the same applications in their IL5 uh, based environments as they do in their IL6 based environments. So a lot of applications have the same pedigree, whether it's running on the NIPRNet systems or the CyprNet systems. And some of the systems on NIPRNet which have not migrated into the cloud, they haven't migrated into the cloud because there's no commercial cloud environment on CyprNet yet for them to host the same application on. And what they from a testing and management perspective, they don't want to test an application and build it and then have to have it run in two completely disparate environments: commercial cloud on unclassified and traditional hosting on the classified systems. So once we get the commercial cloud capabilities available and across the board on the CyprNet environment, I think we'll also see some traditional applications on the unclassified environment move too, because now they'll have a common environment where they can build their application on the unclassified side, move it to the unclassified cloud, and then also move it to the classified cloud in order to meet mission needs. Uh, so uh, so a lot of the shared pedigree type systems are going to, basically the barriers for those migrating are going to be broken down by having this all available. There are a lot of native classified systems where they're born, developed and deployed in a classified environment in order to meet classified mission needs. And having a cloud environment is just another kind of feather in the cap in that environment to make sure that we can meet mission needs and provide a more resilient capability for the warfighter.
And I mentioned previously the only other option was the CIA cloud, where if you wanted to have a classified cloud, that was or NSA, I guess CIA and NSA clouds, those are your main options. But now having a DISA option, that just obviously it's a competition issue, it's a convenience issue. This will kind of just open the door for a lot more effort, a lot more
Correct.
opportunity.
So we'll have, this summer we'll have MilCloud 2.0 on CyprNet available to mission partners. We're also working with two other, large commercial cloud providers to have them natively connect to CyprNet through our SIPRNet boundary cloud access points, which will be available here over the next probably 60 days or so. So in the IL6 environment, the classified world, you're going to have a choice of commercial cloud providers in order to meet your mission needs, whether it be MilCloud 2 or AWS GovCloud or Azure for the federal government running at the classified environment. Those three options will be available to mission partners this summer.
All right. All good news, all important things as more and more people start using the cloud. The other piece I want to talk a little bit about is some of the other changes. You mentioned access to AWS through MilCloud 2.0. You mentioned as well the VMware changes. Walk me through why both of these are important updates and evolutions to MilCloud.
So, uh, so the the addition of VMware ESX to the environment was really based on mission partner demand. As I talked about, we have these various groups where we have bi-directional communication with the customers, and one of the barriers for entry, for mission partners who virtualize early on, they made a large investment in their VMware ESX, based environments years ago, and they virtualize their workloads. And their system administrators are very comfortable in that environment. Um, and when we first launched MilCloud 2.0, it was based on the Linux KVM hypervisor, which at the time we honestly did not think was going to be that big of a deal to make the switch from one to the other. But when you talk to mission partners and system administrators who've been doing the same thing for years, sometimes it was a road that was just too far for them to make the move, to basically rebuild all their virtual machines in a completely different environment. Um, and so by adding VMware ESX to the capability, we're able to leverage vMotion to move virtual machines from a legacy VMware environment into a commercial cloud-based VMware environment without necessarily having to rebuild applications from the ground up. So it has lowered the barrier of entry for mission partners who have kind of built their business systems around the VMware ecosystem. And so by adding that capability, it really was about making it easier to get into the system. Um, the other capabilities, like adding AWS GovCloud credits to the MilCloud 2 capability, and other commercial cloud capabilities going forward, was really about resolving the fit for purpose cloud environments that we identified as part of uh, our cloud readiness assessments. Um, what we wanted to do from a departmental perspective was make it easier for mission partners to move their applications into the commercial cloud environment. And one of the number one barriers right now has to deal with contracting. By adding, the AWS GovCloud, for example, to the MilCloud 2.0 contract, a mission partner can acquire AWS GovCloud credits through the Defense Working Capital Fund by basically MIPRing money to DISA. They don't have to do a contract. They don't have to do a contract mod. They don't have to go through that whole process. And they're basically able to acquire the credits necessary to run their applications in pretty much around 48 hours. And the bulk majority of that 48 hours is spent around the transfer of funds, not around the technology itself. So if we can push the funds management solution within the department a little harder, then we could probably get that down faster. But that's really what we're looking at. It's really about time to market from the time a mission partner says they need a capability to the time it's available to them.
And if I could just put maybe a finer point on that discussion too, because when you hear AWS credit, so if I'm, you know, the army and I say, okay, I have this capability that I want to put in the cloud, I want to use AWS, I can call up DISA and say, I need this much storage, this much compute power, this, I want to, turn up these many servers, and it's going to cost, and then DISA and GDIT says it's going to cost you this much money. You MIPR the money, you're ready to go. So are you going right into the AWS cloud from DISA, or how does it work?
Yeah, so what we do is we have native connectivity through our boundary cloud access points, our enterprise boundary cloud access points, into what we call a cloud exchange, which gives us direct connectivity into all the major commercial cloud providers. And so, in your example, let's take the Army, for example. If they came to us and said they want to leverage the capability, they would MIPR the money over, and they would get credits that they could then log into AWS GovCloud portal and manage their workloads in that environment. Much like we do with MilCloud 2.0 on-prem, mission partners, once they've acquired the credits, they then log in through a management portal, and they're allowed to leverage those credits however they see fit. That's kind of the way the pay-as-you-go model works in the commercial cloud environment. Is you don't buy servers, you don't buy storage, you don't buy CPUs, you buy credits, and then your system administrators determine how you apply those credits towards your demand signal in order to meet mission needs. So a given application may need a certain number of servers, may need a certain number of CPUs, a certain amount of storage, and a certain amount of RAM in order to meet mission needs. But then next month it could be less, and you can turn those up and spin those down in order to meet mission needs, and it just kind of keeps going against your credits as far as from a billing perspective. Um, I like to akin it to for those people in this area, the Baltimore Washington metro area. It's kind of like your Easy Pass, right? As you ride down the road, you're not really worried about paying that particular toll at that time. It gets taken care of automatically. You just drive on the roads that you need to drive on in order to get to where you need to go.
I want to bring up the pay as you go model because I think it's one thing that's been a big challenge for a lot of agencies understanding how do I address that issue because my funding is limited. I don't want to get in trouble with the by spending more money than I have. And so walk me through how's just helping to manage that pay as you go model so the Army in this situation doesn't spend too many credits, or if they only buy 100 credits, they can only spend 100 credits. Is that really the key here?
Yeah. So um, the way it works is you go into the MilCloud 2 portal, and we have what's called a cost estimator, where you go in and you lay out what your estimates, what you think you need, um, as far as the number of servers, the amount of storage, the amount of memory, um, and it will give you a cost estimate for what we would expect you to spend to run that application for the next year. You can then take that to your budgeting team, and you can actually build that into your budget to make sure that you have the right amount of funds set aside to run your application in the commercial cloud environment for a given year. And then you take those funds and you buy cloud credits. And then as you go through the year, you burn against those credits. Once you get to a certain percentage of your burn rate, we're going to start to warn you that you're getting close. And we'll adjust that towards the end of the fiscal year, either up or down, in order to meet your needs to get through the fiscal year.
And what happens if I run out of credits and I run out of money?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a commercial offering, right?
Right,
So, and if the capability is not paid for, it gets turned off.
right.
But we've never had that happen to a mission partner. So we work very closely with our mission partners from both from a contracting and a financial perspective to make sure that that doesn't happen. If a mission partner burns hot early on, we warn them early on that they're burning hot and it's going to be a problem. And so we've knock on wood, we've never had a situation where we had to actually turn off mission partner unwillingly. So
And I've got to ask the same question because if you remember, or if you have kids in college, you pay their dining plan and they get credits on their dining plan, and sometimes it's use or lose. I mean, John, you work for the government, you may understand a little bit about use or lose.
yeah.
If I pay for 100 credits, I only use 90, and it's the end of the fiscal year. Does that 10 credits potentially carry over, or do I get a refund? How does that work?
So they carry. So it depends. It depends. That's the easiest way to say it. Depending upon how much is left over at the end of the year, we can carry it over and into credits for the next year. The other option is we can refund it back to mission partners uh, in order to meet their financial requirements. So
Yeah, I think that's good to hear because I think there's always that concern because there's so much uncertainty, right? Unlike the Easy Pass example, or unlike your electricity, which is the other common one that's when you talk about cloud is it doesn't really matter how much electricity you use or how many times you go through the easy passes connected to your credit card. You don't have to worry about the overspending your budget, so to speak. I guess you do in some ways, but it's a lot different in government. You don't go to jail if John spends too much time on the Greenway out in the Dulles area.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear that there's that balance. John, we've talked a lot about security earlier on in IL6 and the move to classified. The other, I'll call it buzzword that we've heard a lot about over the last year or so is zero trust and the renewed focus on identity and access management. Obviously, DoD is ahead of most of the rest of the government because of the Common Access Card. What is MilCloud 2 doing, or what is DISA doing more broadly when it comes to cloud services to incorporate pieces of the zero trust architecture to improve identity and access management capabilities?
Yeah, so great question. So, years ago when we launched our DoD enterprise email system, we created a system behind that called EASF, which is Enterprise Application Services Forest, and IDSS, which is our Identity Synchronization Service. Those are services that like nobody had ever heard of and nobody really leverages, like outside of enterprise kind of capabilities. But what we're seeing is with the renewed push towards zero trust is identity is the key, right? And so the ability to identify individuals, applications, appliances, network devices, etc., have all become critical. And those services which we built years ago are once again coming through as kind of the core enablers to meet zero trust requirements. Um, from a cloud perspective, we see zero trust as the future for the way we're going to leverage cloud capabilities. We have spent a lot of time and investment in building defense in depth kind of capabilities. Like, if you could picture an onion, right? A series of layers of defense capabilities. But once you get through those defenses and you're inside, you're inside. And really, zero trust is about making sure that that kind of adversarial attack doesn't happen. So removing the reliability on those defense in depth kind of boundary protection capabilities and moving more towards a zero trust model is the right way to go and is what we see the future. In a large sense, it puts a lot of my capabilities and a lot of things I've done over the last 4 or 5 years out of business, and I'm happy for that. My father always taught me that your number one job should be to work yourself out of a job, and then once you do that, you will find another job, right? So I view zero trust as the capability and the technology that's going to basically put me out of business. Um, but I'm good for that because that's the right thing to do for the department, and it's the right thing to do for the warfighter. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do for the taxpayer. We'll provide the end goal for zero trust is to provide more secure capability, better pedigree for information and information flow at a more cost-effective mechanism. And we are working very closely with our commercial cloud vendors to embed zero trust capabilities into everything that we're buying and acquiring going forward. And it really is where we see the cloud going.
It's kind of funny that you guys came up with these services that, as you said, no one's really ever heard of them. A lot of people haven't leveraged them. Then all of a sudden, hey, the zero trust thing, right? People are excited for, and then these capabilities are there waiting for them. It was. You have to give credit to someone who had that forethought, or would you say, maybe there's a little bit of luck there?
I,
And I mean that in the most sincere way, by the way.
well, since I was one of the folks behind building those services, I like to say it was a little forethought, but it was probably more luck. When we built those services years ago, we were trying to solve a very particular problem at that time, which is where we did not have a department-wide identity capability, and we needed one in order to deploy department-wide enterprise services. So that was why we kind of went down that road. Just the fact that we're able to leverage those capabilities now to bring on new capabilities such as zero trust is just a win-win.
John, I've enjoyed our conversation. We're just about out of time. Before I let you go, I just want to ask you for the message that you want to leave with our audience we were spending these 3 days talking about DoD and cloud and why it's important. And what I've heard from other folks, your colleagues across the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, is it's not so much about the cloud, but it's about delivering the capabilities. And I think throughout our conversation today, that's the one thing you really hit upon: ease of use, get better, faster, cheaper, even. So what's the message you want to leave?
So I would say that the key takeaway there is I hope it came across in our discussion is, when we talk about cloud capabilities overall, our key focus is on the warfighter, making sure that the warfighter has the tools necessary for them to complete his or her mission in a timely fashion, in a safe fashion, to ultimately bring them home safely. And that's really the focus of most of the department. And when we look at cloud, it's really geared towards how do we solve the needs for the warfighter, because at the end of the day, that's what's important, is making sure that we bring our young men and women home safely. Um, you know, Over the years, we have crossed a lot of hurdles from a cloud perspective to get to where we're at. Um, I I still drive by the same messages that I always talk about: start small, scale fast, and don't be fearful of the unknown. And if mission partners continue to work down that road, I think we'll get there and meet everything that we want to meet.
I love that. Start small, have no fear, work fast, don't worry about mistakes, move forward. John, loved our conversation. I always enjoy our time together. So thank you for taking the time. Let me thank my guest. John Hale is the Chief of Cloud Services at the Defense Information Systems Agency. John, thank you so much for taking the time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on again.
I'm Jason Miller, and you've been listening to Federal News Network. Now, let me send you back to the studio for more from the DoD Cloud Exchange.